Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's been so great to see you all and connect with you. This last 1.5 years has been unbelievable with the pandemic and all of our challenges as adults and the rest of the world just struggling at this time. But you know who's been affected the most? Our children and the young people that are struggling with socializing and their routines are messed up. So today we want to find a way, how could we help them? How could we make this time help? How could we help them? How could we help them at this time because of the struggles? And how could we help them move forward so they don't get the aftermath effects of this COVID period? So today's segment, it's a second segment of a 5-week series on how to overcome the pandemic. And my name is Sonia Carwell. I'm the founder of VEDA by Sonia, and I'll be sharing with you knowledge in different ways that you can live your best life. So thank you for joining me for Saturday Solutions. So today we have Clarke Weatherspoon, and a little bit about Clarke. He is the headmaster of Friends Middle School in San Francisco. Not only does he have 20 years of experience as an independent school teacher, diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioner, coach, and consultant, Clarke previously served as a Dean of Equity and Inclusion at the Urban School of San Francisco. Clarke volunteers as a meditation instructor and is an avid supporter of helping share the power of the self, meditation, and breath to children and teens and all communities across the world. Welcome, Clarke.
Hi, it's so nice to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I guess my first question to you, Clarke, is can you please share with me your decision and passion for helping the youth and how you became a teacher and why?
Yeah, I'll just say that I never wanted to be a teacher. My dad's a teacher, and I think when I was maybe a junior in high school, I told him that I never wanted to be a teacher, and he laughed, and he reminds me of that conversation to this day. But I made this decision because I wanted to get a job that wasn't just about making money, and I really wanted to find a way to positively contribute in the world. And I was doing some coaching. I really loved coaching, and I started teaching high school a year after I graduated college. I loved it and have stayed with it. But it's really been about wanting to make a positive contribution to society, and then also really being inspired by the teachers I had when I was a kid, many of whom were really, really good and really caring people.
Right, right. So we know that a lot of the children are struggling with adjustments during the pandemic. What is one of the major ones that you think that are obstacles that you've seen that kids are overcoming, like one main one?
I think lack of privacy is really important for people of all ages and backgrounds, right? So one of the things that the pandemic has done is it's made socioeconomic realities for people have changed profoundly how we've all experienced the pandemic. And simultaneously, because people have had to stay where they are, even if where they are is not their home, maybe it's a family member's home or a community member's home or a community center, wherever it is people are staying, they're having to stay there, and they're often there with other people. And so a lot of teens are having a hard time not having their own space. Even if you live, let's say, in a 1-bedroom house or a studio and you live with a parent, often that parent's at work and you're able to be in that place by yourself as a kid for a little while. And now for a lot of kids, because parents either aren't working or are working from home, the reality of being with parents or family members or caretakers, I think, is having a huge impact on kids.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm a mother of two, and that's one of the things we do find is that everybody's space is all of a sudden, for the last 1.5 years, it's all been together. And, you need that privacy. You need that space as adults and as children, for sure. Absolutely. So what is a way that you found that you've overcome it with, the other parents? For myself, I've actually made it kind of important in our relationship with my kids to kind of say, you know what, let's have some moments away, and you don't have the social interaction, but we don't have to be always together during dinner, of course, and TV time and all that stuff, for sure, we'll be together in activities, but, finding things for them to do rather than just sending them to the room so they're on their phone all, for a couple of hours. So what are the things that you found that can help us overcome it?
Routines are really important, and getting outside is super important. One of the things that's been interesting as an educator is talking with parents who are having a hard time getting their kids to go outside because their kids are so used to being inside. And so working with kids to have, schedules, right? So schedule time outside, whether it's for kids on their own or for kids and parents together, or scheduling privacy, right? So if there's a common area, if there's a room that, kids like to be in, as a parent, schedule a time. Is it a 30-minute time? Is it a 1 hour time? Is it a 15-minute time where that kid can be in that space on their own, and as a parent to really honor that boundary that's been created so that people have some predictability and some understanding that they're going to have time dedicated to their own pursuits and experiences.
Right, right. So I had a question from a young person that's asking, how do I deal with my anxiety as I'm stressed with all these negative emotions? What would you recommend?
There's a couple of things. One is connected to the last question, is having some routines, having some opportunity to get stressed out. It's super important to be active, right? So one of the things that's happened in the pandemic is there's been a lot of writing about the need for activity, a need for consistent sleep patterns, right? So not staying up all night playing Xbox or being on social media all night, but going to bed at a reasonable hour. And by reasonable, I would say, before midnight, 11:30, right? Trying to get up around 6 or 7. I know, actually for kids, they need more sleep, right? So probably going to sleep at like 10 and getting up at 6 or 7. For a lot of kids, they need 8 to 10 hours of sleep, right? So getting a lot of sleep, getting some exercise, doing that consistently, and then looking for something that you enjoy that's yours and not your parents or your caretakers, can also give a greater sense of engagement, achievement, curiosity, and creativity, right? So last thing, if there's something that you can do for, personally, I'm a fan. I mean, I like sing all the time. That's one of my personal stress relievers, but singing, or, if you're like a bedroom dance party person, or, whatever it is, having things, whether it's painting, be creative a bit, that can also help to, to reduce anxiety. I think that's important.
Yeah. And, there is a lot of anxiety that happens, but, I think kids just need to know that it's going to be okay. We're all going to get through this together as a family, as a country, as the whole world. We're going to get through it. So, one of the things that kids end up doing, and from my own experiences with my elder one being a teenager, that's social media. So the next question is, how can I limit my social media? What's a good way that I can kind of cut down the time? It may not be to like 1 hour, but from maybe 8 hours to 1 hour. How could we make that adjustment?
Make a schedule, right? And then also do so in a non-judgmental way, right? So a lot of our conversation about social media with kids is that it's bad, it's wrong. Like, don't do it, don't use it. And those are things that I think for kids can become really anxiety producing, right? So make a schedule, and also make a schedule with the phone, right? So not just social media, but with the phone itself, because it can be really tempting if the phone is in the room, to want to go check the phone. So the phone should be checked out, right? If the parent takes the phone for a number of time, and the child wants to use it, child should go check the phone out, right? And there should be some sort of boundary, some sort of contract around it, but not in a judgmental way, and not like lording it over the child, so then it feels like a burden, because then it can actually be counterproductive to the relationship between the parents and the children. But definitely not having free reign, because there has been, it's interesting when you read about the research that's gone into how people's mood changes when they spend too much time on social media, right? They begin to view that or their view begins to be that they should be like the people who they're looking at, and that's a very distorted view of people's lives. And so having some separation from that's important.
Yeah. And I always find with kids, it's not what you say, it's what you do. So kids do mimic us as adults. So if we're on the phone all the time and we're kind of ignoring the children, then they also mimic that, and they're so much more engaged. So one thing I do is kind of put the phone away at nighttime and tell the kids, you know what, all the social media, kind of, the iPad, the computers, let's put everything away in one room and we all get it at the same time in the morning. So it doesn't distract even us as adults, because it can consume all of us. So another question from a parent is, what are things that parents can do to help support their child?
It's a very broad question, but I would say get to know your child as a person.
Yeah.
Right. So that I think is one, I always say to the students that I teach, that adults are people too. Right. So, adults have thoughts, feelings, concerns that kids often look at and they're like, whatever, adults, they're in some other world. But it's important for adults to look at kids and recognize that kids have personalities, they have goals, they have fears, they have issues, they have struggles, they have things that are really, sophisticated, complicated, that they're trying to understand. So talking to your child, asking your child what they're interested in, recognizing that they may not respond with an answer, right? Recognizing that like you said, your child is watching you as a parent, you're modeling. So if they listen to you and they're talking about something that you're not interested in, don't change the subject. I think that's something that's really interesting. Sometimes kids are talking to us about things that they're interested in, but because we're not interested in them, we view it as like not important or childish or trivial, when in fact the child is sharing, So when a child is sharing, ask them, oh, tell me more about that. What do you think is interesting about that? What do you think I should know about that? Would you recommend that I learn more about this thing? That's actually one of the things I think that adults miss and parents miss about kids, is that when kids talk to you, they're inviting you to share their experience. And when you don't receive it because you think it's not important, it's a huge missed opportunity. So, and then lastly, I would say accept your children for who they are is really important. Children are not parents, right? So no matter what we want our children to do, they're actually going to end up deciding who they're going to be, right? And what they need to know, what they need to understand from their parents is that they're loved, that they're cared for, that they're safe, and that they can always come home. And that can be difficult because sometimes as parents, children make decisions that we don't like. They date people we don't like. They go to college in places that we don't like. But the purpose of being a parent, I think, for a lifetime of a parent, a lifetime of a child, is love, care, protection, right? And I believe that should be unconditional.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing I can add to that is one thing that's really helped me is including the children in the cooking process, because we're always in the kitchen eating and grabbing snacks and grocery shopping. But, what do you like to eat? What are the things, instead of, kind of just designating the job to the mother, and which most kids do, including them and say, what do you want to eat? Let's make something fun. Let's have taco night. Let's kind of, make it fun, make movie nights kind of more interesting, have it on a big screen TV. So that's kind of been helpful for myself as well as my kids, and they've enjoyed being around me. Sometimes not all the time, but it's been not so bad. Yeah. And how do you think kids can feel safe again? That's another question from a parent.
Particularly in light of the pandemic, yeah?
Yeah.
I think what's really important is to just help kids understand what the safety guidelines are for where they live. Personally, I think it's good for kids to keep wearing masks. I recognize that people have different opinions on that, but if one is thinking about developing a strong sense of safety, I think it's important to do things that make one feel safe, right? So for me, I'm vaccinated, and so when I go outside, I don't wear a mask. But if I go into a place where there's lots of people, right? So if I go stand in line at the coffee shop, or if I walk into a store, or if I go into my job, I put a mask on, right? And so following the safety guidelines, paying attention to distancing, really understanding, or like particularly with kids, don't share drinks or food with people. Don't sit on people's laps. Maybe take it easy on the hugging, right? Like those are things that kids can be kind of prone to do, and just have faith that it's gonna move on. But I think it's important to recognize that for some kids and for some families, there's still lots of fear, and that's totally understandable. It's been a huge crisis that's affected everybody in the world, and to assume that it's just going to move, or that people are just going to automatically feel good about it, I think maybe asking too much. So
Yeah.
recognizing the fear of some children and encouraging them to follow the guidelines and be cautious as much as they feel is good, I think was.
And maybe even talking to somebody who they feel, if there's a lot of anxiety, if they don't know, how to process information, asking if they're a grown-up or a great teacher, talking to somebody also is a great form of communication that people can make our best friend. Talking is always important. I think you don't share it, then you'll never know if this is normal, what's going on within you, or, if it's just something that everybody is going through and you feel more safer. So
Yeah, to go back to my last response to your previous question, like if a child says they're nervous, acknowledge it, support them, help them find support, right? Don't dismiss it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I guess what are some quick tools that kids can do whenever they feel this anxiety? What are things that we can teach them as parents, but also the kids can learn on their own whenever they feel, even before an exam or even during,
Yeah,
yeah.
so understanding the power of breathing and its capacity to calm us down, I think is really important. I can, go through a very simple
Yeah,
exercise, for 2 minutes. Do you want to try that now?
awesome. Yeah.
Okay. So, um, we can do a very simple exercise. You can do this sitting in a chair. You can do this at school. You can do this at home. You can do this on the bus. You can do it lying down. Um, but it's really just designed to help one be calm. Okay. So just do a couple of minutes. So you can sit with the eyes closed. You're going to take a deep breath in through your nose and breathe out through your nose. Take another deep breath in and breathe out. And bring your attention to your feet, keeping the eyes closed and not using your imagination, but just being aware of your feet. Your knees, your thighs and hips, your abdomen, stomach, chest, shoulders, right arm, left arm, throat, face, top of the head. Become aware of your whole body. And take a deep breath in and breathe out. And take another deep breath in And breathe out. You can rub your hands together. And massage your face a little bit. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So that was about 3-4 minutes. And that's a really wonderful process. Like if you're having a hard time going to sleep or, just feeling a little bit in your head or uptight or anything like that, it can really help calm you down. I do that exercise a lot.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Well, so let's wrap it up. But thank you so much, Clarke, for joining us and answering some of those questions. We'll have you back again after the pandemic and maybe kind of discuss more things that we can learn from your experiences. So if anybody has questions, you can email me on a direct message. You can direct message me, or you can even contact Clarke. But we would love to connect with you. And next Saturday Solutions on June 5th, we'll be discussing coming back to work after the pandemic. And I really appreciate you guys. Thank you, Clarke. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you so much.
Bye.